But to make it real, we
1801.
do have a
Good to go?
It is up and running, but it's picking on the first thing that moves. And the first thing that moved was mine.
Of course. Should I say still?
that move.
Just don't breathe. I'll let you know.
Yeah. That's not what I want. You're breathing.
I ate my pizza. That was.
Well, the audio's running, so I'll just start
Let's pick
anyway.
it up.
We're good.
All right, good evening. Today's February 26, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Today we're going to have a special legislative meeting. And on the agenda we have a special finance, and if need be, we'll roll into the special. Well, actually, we will do the special even if there's nothing on there, and then finish up from that. So before we jump into our special legislative meeting tonight, we do have a special finance and personnel with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the special finance and personnel meeting to order. It is Wednesday, what's the date today? The 26th,
3rd.
February 26th. 6:03 p.m. here in council chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mr. Heidig, Mr. Griffin, Mr. Greer, as well as all other council members and guests as noted on my sheet. Tonight we are discussing appointments for the Charter Review Commission. We were just handed an updated list, switching out one of the
Looks like a couple.
Oh, wait, no, there's more than that. Down
Is
there's
there?
more.
hold on, let me, since we were
No.
just handed this list, hold on one second.
I think it's only one.
Just one.
I think it is just
There's only
one.
one.
Yeah.
Eddie Lawson volunteered to remove himself, and John White is being put on.
Okay, I did try to meet with the mayor, I think early this evening, was not able to find him. However, I did have a discussion with him, said everything that, you know, I wanted to say personally. So I was hoping he would be here tonight to discuss it, but, I want to go ahead and just open it up to all of council to have this discussion. So, whoever wants to go first.
Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay. I want to go back to our first meeting when it didn't come out of committee. Okay? And the reason why it didn't come out of committee is we had 4 Dems and 1 Republican, which wasn't Republican enough, right? Am I
Yeah,
correct?
that's not the only reason, but
Okay.
continue.
Okay. Mr. Harden's voting record showed that he had voted more times Democrat, so he was disqualified in a sense. Okay, the next breakdown of numbers. Look at us right here. It's 8 of us. How many of us voted for the other party in our voting history?
And what I didn't hear you there.
How many of us voted for the other party in our voting history? Huh? I know the answer, but anyway.
Oh, I do too.
You know, too.
I back
Yeah,
in
okay,
2013,
but
but
that-
there was nothing.
Okay, but.
I mean, and like I said, like I told everybody, parties don't mean anything to me.
But anyway, okay, does that make you less a Republican or more, but if you voted once or twice for the other party? Does it?
No, and I have also voted Democrat
Yes,
for
yeah, I know you
vote for
have.
the person, not the
Okay.
party. I just think when it comes to representation, you know,
Okay,
there's
now-
a difference in that. Just like Many of you sat here wanting to put a Democrat in the Ward 2 seat because that's what Mr. Cheatham
Yes,
was.
that was me. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So-
But that would have to be put on the ballot to make it mandatory. All that is just a suggestion.
Okay, so that's all I was doing, was
Yeah.
making a suggestion to have proper
Suggestion.
representation.
Okay. I love rules. I like rules. The only time I don't like rules is when there's, one rule for me, another rule for somebody else. As long as the rules for everybody, I love it. That way there's no dispute. There's no going back. Am I correct? Okay, the Charter Review Commission is going to be violated by the end of the month. That's never happened. Okay? That's never happened. And we've been getting a lot of bad publicity from people around town, thoughts of people saying about us, and we're better than that. Okay, so if you want to have, the maximum is 4 from any party, correct?
Correct.
4 from any party. It doesn't say 2 this, 2 this, 1 libertarian, whatever, 2 this, 2 this, 2 none that. It doesn't say that. So what we should do is work on a rule to make it mandatory. You see what I'm saying? Whatever it takes, petitions, voter, whatever, in the next 5 years, they'll come up and say, okay, this is what we gotta have. We gotta have 2 of this, 2 of this, and 2 of that, if it's available. Now, if you don't have people applying from that, well, you can't do it, correct?
You'd have to have a secondary
Yeah, you have
fallback
to have
clause.
something. But as it stands right now, we don't have a rule in place that says we have to do this and we have to do that. Do we? No. We don't have one, do we? No. And all these people are overly qualified. They've been on it before. They know what they're doing. And they don't have, we still have the last say-so. They can change something, but it comes back here, we can still say no. Am I correct?
You are.
Just hang on, Jen. Let
Yeah. And,
Mr. Griffin
okay,
speak.
non-party. Okay, non-party can walk on both sides of the street, right? And they can vote for whoever they want to, anytime they want to, and there's no scrutiny on them, correct? Okay, because they're non-party. They can vote this way one time, or they can mix and match, and nobody says nothing, right? Okay, but I'm a Democrat. You can look at my record, you're gonna find out that's all I have. Okay, but I have the option to still vote for somebody else. Does that make me less a Democrat? Does that make me, because I vote for somebody else, because I like them over somebody else in the home party? No. And to be, my head is just as hard as anybody's else, and that's for sure. And I'm stubborn just as anybody else. But as old as I am and everything that I've done in my life, I found out that I can get more by just being a little bit smarter and a little bit, instead of beating my head up against the wall to try and have it the way I want to have it, I can do better by not what you call compromising, just be a little more smarter and doing things that's for the good of the city and for everybody that's here. That's what we're working for. We're working for the citizens here. And that's what matters, the citizens of Barberton. And this has never been, the Charter Review has never been, we always met the deadline. We never carried it into, we gotta do this, guys. And we still get the same, like I said at the end, we still have the same say-so. They could come up with whatever, but it's come before council and say, do you want it? Yes or no? Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Case closed. Mr. Hyde? Yeah.
I just want to respond quickly.
Yeah.
this is very heavily focused on party. I did make a comment that I wanted a Republican on there, in addition to Tom Harden. Okay. However, it's not only about that. It's that I think it's important to have fresh faces. I mean, we have people, and Mayor even said, like, you know, I haven't even met this person, but, you know, I think, and everybody who applied is qualified. But I don't think having a whole group of people that has, you know, worked for the city, served on council, you know, this is a pretty good list of the mayor's friends. It almost is discouraging for new people to apply in the future. You know what I mean? If he's only going to suggest the appointment for his buddies, that's not really fair to the other citizens.
That's why you changed the rule.
I love that.
That's why you have to change it.
I love that you brought that up, and I think that's a great
But we
idea.
can't do it between now and,
Yeah,
Well,
you're
you
right about
suggested
that.
changing the charter, so we shouldn't be surprised if that comes across our desk after this is
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate.
But in the
you bringing
meantime,
that to
that's why it's
people.
council approved. So when the rule isn't in place, I think it helps stop what Mrs. Thompson's talking about.
Mr. Heiden.
Thank you, Chair. So, look at this commission. I'll be the first to say that, yeah, I do have problems with a couple of them on there. But at the same time, number one, President Greer, how long have you owned iPhones?
Since 2007.
Okay, so one of these candidates has been around on different boards and commissions since or on this board and commission since 2010. Okay? So that one I had a problem with. But the more I thought about it here, this, for one, I would love to see newer faces, everything. I would. But delve deeper into this. The Charter Review Commission, out of every board and out of every commission in the entire city, in the government or in the private sector, is probably the most powerless one there is. It's people sitting around a room looking at a 27-page document and suggesting changes. They have no power. They have nothing other than talking to each other. So the more I thought about it, the more I'm willing to pass this list because it's immaterial. Now, if we don't like some of these names on the list, and we don't think that some of these people should be on a charter review commission, Councilor Gerhardt, what committee are you the chair of?
Rules, marketing, and development.
In her rules committee, what say, I propose the 8 of us have our own damn charter review commission? Because we have the same say. At the end of the day, their suggestions are going to go through Councilor Gerhardt's committee. Just like if any of us suggested a charter amendment, it would go through Councilor Gerhardt's committee. If this charter review commission sends 3 suggestions, 1 suggestion, 10 suggestions, anybody that has any issue with the charter, better damn well bring some of their own too. I plan on it. Councilor Harris, do you have a couple in mind that you'd like to see?
A couple, you said? I have more than a couple.
Fair enough. You're on council. You're allowed to
Yes, sir.
propose that.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, I propose this. I propose we pass this list. And in the meantime, while they're meeting, every 2 weeks in Councilor Gerhardt's committee, we discuss our own. Because that's the same thing. If we have a problem with certain names on this list, I don't think we have a problem with each other in this room. Then what say we have our own de facto? Well, we have a committee for it anyway.
Right.
So to me, my opinion, let's pass the list, and if we have a problem with anything, as Councilor Griffin said, we'll propose them. And if that means by the end of the Charter Review Commission's time, which they are time limited by the charter, to afford for 3 readings to go to the ballot, because suspending the charter to possibly amend the charter is the highest of ironies, so that's why it's closed at a certain time. If we have to send 20 amendments to the ballot, then we're going to let the people decide how they want their government run. And if that's a rule that we all decide the Charter Review Commission should not matter what background or anything you are, then damn it, we're gonna propose it and put it in the committee and put it to the floor. But this is silly. Let's just put this list together, and if the people elected us to represent them, we'll put them to have their independent minds on it, and we'll put our own minds to it, and put them all in her committee. And like I said, if we send 20 to the ballot, so be it. Thank you.
I'm gonna go with Mrs. Hager since she's.
Yes, no, please do.
I was not born and raised in Barberton, but I have lived here for over 30 years and raised all three of my children here. I absolutely love this city. I'm a little concerned when, as much respect as I have for you, Councilman Heidig, when you say, doesn't matter what they say, we don't have to approve it, you know, because if we do that with this being a public meeting and everybody sees it, and the citizens of this town, no matter how many of them watch this live stream and last week's live stream, and they know there are people on this commission that we do not approve of, it does not matter how honestly, deep in our heart and in our mind, we do not agree with a suggestion. If we don't approve it, we are going to have the citizens of this town on our backs. Oh, well, you didn't approve it because you didn't like them. You sit here and you say, oh, well, they're powerless. It's no big deal. But it is a big deal, at least for this year. Until this rule is changed, it's a damn big deal. Because these are the people in this town that are going to make suggestions to us to change the charter of this city. I don't want somebody who has been on council for 12 years and served in the city, worked for it for 30 years. I want new, fresh faces. I want people to have an opportunity to get involved in their city and feel that their suggestions matter. That this, if we tell them, oh, well, your suggestions don't matter because we can just veto them. Right there, that one sentence can make people say, well, I might as well move out of Barberton because my opinion does not mean jack squat. We keep wanting people to get involved. We keep wanting people to volunteer. But this is a perfect opportunity. Monty has put out a list of new people that is 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, if you want to get into parties, which I don't care. And 2 independents, and we can have Tom Harden, who has been on the board commission, so he can have they can have some guidance, somebody that's been there, and they're all new faces. And then people are gonna look, wow, for once, it's not the good old boys club. For once, there's new faces on a board or commission in this city. Wow, this council is really doing something. This mayor is really doing something. And then people want to get involved. They're not going to sit back and say it's the same old, same old. I have loved this city from the first minute I moved here. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and have somebody say that it doesn't matter. Because it does. To the people of the city who are watching this, it does. And I don't want them walking away from this thinking, oh, well, they don't care who's on the commission. Because we should. Whether their suggestions hold any weight, we should care who's on it because they are representing this city and the people in this city. And that should mean something to every single one of us in this room. And that's all I have to say.
Ms. Gerhardt.
Can I ask, I was going to say Mr. Bebe.
Mr.
I'm
Bebe.
so sorry, Mr. Heidick. Can I ask Mr. Heidick a question? So with the Charter Review Commission, let's say they were given like 20 ideas. They don't have to let all 20 of those ideas come to us. They could nix them in.
They vote, a majority votes sends it to us.
So is that why we have a commission to get, like, so they're kind of pre-screening what comes to us? Is that a way to think about it?
They're coming up with their ideas, voting on them, and if the majority agrees, it comes to us.
Okay, so there would be potential charter suggestions that we would never hear about then?
If you're not at that meeting, yes.
Okay,
The meetings are open.
okay. Next, sorry, thank you. I'm just getting clarification there.
I was going to try to close my mouth this whole time. I'm also going to try to be really quick. I feel like the things, we have been trying to micromanage things. This is not the only thing that we're trying to micromanage. Every time this council micromanages things, we get into stalemates. We have to hold things over. We have to have special meetings. I think we're trying to micromanage this, guys. I understand what you're saying. It is important. It is important. But if it is so important, why are we just now thinking about this? Like he says, we can bring this up in rules and committee and marketing. And you did. I fought you tooth and nail on what you tried to do, but you tried, right?
Well,
On your thing last year.
And once again, the council was going to vote against them, so I pulled them.
Sure.
Because the charter amendment takes 6 of 8
Right.
to move to the
But what I'm
ballot.
saying is, we've already done this.
So we failed on that one.
Also, I understand wanting fresh faces. The charter's basically our constitution, guys. Do you want somebody who doesn't know what's going on here? All faces don't really know how this or that works. I made the point the last time I spoke about this, when we were, interviewing for second ward. We needed that second interview round. Who could have seen that coming? And I'm going to tell you right now, I am proposing that to be a rule change in our rules with us, because we needed that second round. Who could have seen, our charter? Who could know that, who's brand new? Kind of superimpose that over. So I do want people who've been around this block a few times. If you're brand new, get on a committee. Main Street needs people all day long. I'm not saying you can't serve on these things, and there is a person who's been here 2 years. I think it's great. Just in the city 2 years. I think that's wonderful. But I don't want all brand new faces. I'm sorry, I just don't, because it is too important. So with that, I'm not going to say any more. I'm ready to vote.
Ms. Gerhart?
I'm thinking, though, I don't have the list of the other applicants. They're not like new to the city or anything, so they would be well-versed in what happens in the city and everything going on. Would you have felt comfortable with them versus like the brand-new people to the city?
The people who've been here a long time but not really have participated in a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd have to it was very hypothetical, right? I would have to see what they did for a living, or what their resume looked like, or, but it took all of us a year to learn how to do this job, right? And
Yeah.
if you just kind of were like, oh, I'd like to change some rules in and around this joint,
Well, yeah. I mean, anybody could willy-nilly it. Yeah.
Nonsense could come up, and sometimes nonsense comes up in here. So,
Sure. Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That every single one of them, old, same old. You all know I don't want that either. I've agreed with you plenty on the same olds. So, I think we're getting a little bit too much. Oh, this person's been here for 20 years. But yeah, if they were in here for 20 years fixing the roads, they're well, you know what? maybe now that I'm getting a little close to retirement, or I'm not working on the roads anymore, I kind of miss it. Kind of miss this. So I don't think that's not a con in a pros and cons kind of thing. So I'll point that out. I know Eddie has taken his name out, but I think we should maybe look at it through another lens too. So.
I agree. Thank you.
I have one final thing. Councilor Hager, to your point, when I say that this commission is useless, the charter rendered it that way. If you wanted to have some teeth in it, request a charter amendment that puts teeth in the commission, including Councilor Gerhardt's her committee. Because right now, when I say it's powerless, I'm not saying that. That 27-page document's saying it. I'm just reiterating it. But if you feel it should have more teeth, Director Miller's right there. Send an amendment of how you think it should be worded and how it would get more power. Send it to her for approval in different languages, and it'll go right to her committee. Well, it'll go to President Greer first, and then he assigns it according to the rules. But when I sit there and say it's powerless, I'm only telling you what the charter says. It has no bearing. When citizens ask us to present something, like they asked President Greer and myself years ago, and even last year, didn't pass through the council, so what good was it? When you say the people this and the people that, the people elected us. If you say we're letting them down by not doing something, we have the power. We've been letting them down by not doing it ourselves. That commission doesn't have any teeth, and it's the piece of paper that it's written on that says it. We are free to send any amendment we want. I don't like that it's powerless either. But I also don't like how a city like Stowe is, where their commission can send straight to the ballot without any other oversight. That's when it can get ripe for corruption. That's where it can get ripe with the mayor's friends on it that can basically do what they want and bypass the elected authority. That's a bit of an overbite. So bear that in mind. While ours might not have power, we don't want runaway power either. Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
I guess I'll talk now. As you all know, yes, I did, I sent an email out so everybody kind of got to see, well, they did get to see what I proposed. And I know, in looking at the new list that we just got here 5 minutes before we got seated, you know, I noticed there was a change. And I talked to the mayor today and told him what my thoughts were based on listening to everybody. And I agree with your point that it does matter. I agree with Mr. Heidig's point that, yeah, they don't have the power. And I don't look at whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because I feel, you know, Mr. Easterling, when we interviewed him, I thought he was the best candidate. Mm-hmm. You know? And I still, to this day, and probably even 2 years, 3 years from now, I'll feel he's the best candidate. I'm a Republican. He's a registered Democrat. It doesn't matter. I know he's doing the job, okay? And I want to see, I mean, we have, I printed all the applications off here, and so I had them with me. And I see a lot of new people. But on this list, I see some of the same people that have been here forever. And I don't want to see our city continue, you know, I feel it's been stagnant. I've been here 32 years. I drove the streets for 25. I met 99.9% of our population. And I'd like to see, you know, you guys saw my list, you know, Miss Perry, she's on the list that we were provided. Mr. Moore, he's on the list. Mr. Reese, if you don't know Mr. Reese, he worked for the city for how long? Does he have any ties to the city now? No. He lives here? Yes. Does he want to be involved? Yes, obviously. He's put his name in. John White, that's on this new list. I don't know him. I can only read what I read on his application. I just think, you know, like we had Mr. Persley, who's a very bright individual. If you don't know him, I've known him for a long time, and think he would be truly beneficial to our committee. And I did speak to him today, okay? And it's went so long, and you know, he said his name was passed over, so he committed to other things that, you know, victims assistance, safety forces stuff. So, you know, he can't commit to this now. I like seeing the new faces, the new people that have applied, and I appreciate them, and I'm glad they got involved. And, you know, I truly think that we could put new people on here that, you know, and Mr. Harden, I don't know him that well. I've spoke to him. He's bright. You know, he's done it before. He could lead a new group of people. He could direct them. Some of my thoughts are, you know, why not put new people on it? I mean, I've heard things from, you know, people mentioning that, oh, well, it looks like there's an underlying agenda. it's the same old clique, you know? Okay, that's their opinion, I listen to them, I'm not gonna, deny them in what they say. But I do, I think with the new people that's applied, I mean, how are we empowering our citizens to get involved if it's the same old stuff over and over again? If I wasn't on council and I applied to whatever board or commission and I keep doing it and I just keep getting, overlooked or never selected, I mean, eventually I'm gonna say, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. I have some new ideas. I'd like to express them, but I'm not being allowed to, because, well, I can't go to that commission or that board. I'm not selected. I mean, they can go to it and voice their opinion, but being a part of it is, I think, something more powerful than just sitting in the background saying, what you want to say or offering your suggestions because they may or may not be listened to. I mean, that goes the same with this board or commission. So I'm glad to see somewhat of a change, but not overall. And some people's harped on the part of the political affiliation. I look at it like this: what's best for our city? I've watched the city, in my eyes, and many others that I've talked to, has declined. Our population has declined specifically, and I've talked to business owners, I've talked to property owners, citizens, and I think it's time for a change in what direction we go here, and having new people on stuff, I think, is a start. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Ms. Thompson, I appreciate it.
Mr. Griffin, did you have something else to add?
Yes, the reason I said that, it was brought up. One party kept bringing it up. So I had a rebuttal to it, I had an answer to it. And we still need rules. We still need a rule to whatever, to make a change, put a time period on it or put something on it to make it more. Still have to make a rule so it just doesn't happen again. It can be, okay, I gotta pick somebody that's only been there, so many years, blah, blah, blah. And that would help everybody. But we gotta pass this thing, get started again. Who's next? Oh, well.
Yeah, I just wanted to just point out two things. One, political affiliation has to be taken into consideration. It's in our charter. So that is defined by what they are registered at the Board of Elections. And I supplied that information to President Greer. I think that just like if you said you had to have a committee of 5 women and 5 men, that's the demarcation line, right? And that's the demarcation line for this. So espousing whether you think it's relevant or not relevant, at this point it's relevant and it's factual. So I would just encourage you to just realize it's just like a Ward 1 representative has to live in Ward 1. I mean, we could say there are plenty of brilliant people in Ward 2 and Jen shouldn't be allowed to be on Ward 1 because there's people out. It doesn't matter. You have to live there to be that council member. So just like that, those are the rules in the charter about political affiliation. I just don't want it. Everybody knows they want the best person, but the political affiliation is delineated and demarcated, and that's required.
Actually, can I kind of add to that? Actually, you and I talked about this, and I had forgotten to bring this. I can't believe I forgot to bring this up all this time. Let's say I got in trouble in my profession, that I did something bad to a client of mine. I would have to go down to Columbus and meet in front of a board for whatever kind of punishment I might have. That is also broken up the same way, and we're talking about real estate. So this is not the only kind of avenue where those rules are, and those things have been thought up, and all of those pitfalls have been thought out by smarter people than myself. Don't know why it's that way, but it is. You know what I mean? So this isn't the only thing just in our charter that works that way. There's more to it, but it says there is like certain numbers of parties and things like that, so.
Ms. Gerhart.
I'm sorry, this just keeps going on.
It's an important discussion, so.
Well, I was trying to get some clarity with what Mrs. Miller was just talking about. So when we look at the Board of Elections, we're only looking at the last time that they voted.
You are
That
absolutely correct.
Yes.
So my question is, the last time you voted, let's say that was different than how you voted for the past 20 years.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Right, it doesn't matter. But voting differently the last time, does that make you an independent, or does that switch your party affiliation?
If you look on the Board of Elections website, it will tell you if you are a D or an R or not. It will tell you that.
So it will specify if you're an independent?
No, it will say.
None.
None?
Yeah.
Meaning you
Okay.
just didn't vote in the last primary election.
Correct.
The last-
But that's, okay, but that's, I really, I am not discouraged that you're having a conversation about this. I'm not discouraged that you debated about it. I think it's healthy and good. What I am discouraged about is that that's a bright line rule. You are what you are at the Board of Elections, period.
And that's what I was just getting
Yeah.
clear, because when I would look at somebody, if it was like D here, R here, D here, R there, I would view them as an independent.
Oh, that's certainly.
That's what I'm
I think
thinking.
that's a
'Cause
valid opinion.
That's how I would look at somebody's
Right.
voting history. But
But-
in this matter, we are merely looking at the
Correct.
last time they voted. You are a D, an R, or a non.
Correct.
I just
And-
wanted clarity on that.
Cool, absolutely.
Thank you.
And as a kind of a joke, I'm going to try to make something funny here. I kind of chuckle when everyone gets wrapped up in that people switch. I'm like, well, isn't that what all political parties are trying to do, is get people to join their team, right? So if people join your team or leave your team and go to a new team, I mean, that's what the goal of all of it is, right? In elections, you're trying to persuade people, right? So I just really just, I am not, I think it's great that there's conversation. I just really want to make sure that the conversation about politics, and there's air quotes, no one can see that, is that it's a line. It's not a philosophy. In our charter, it's a line.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. And I think the only reason, I would never think to look, I would like to remind everybody here, the grief that I was given back in '23 for whose campaign I was the finance chair of. Please?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't stop and ask, well, what's your political party before I support you? What's your religion before I support you? That's not me. So anybody who thinks that, put that out of your head. But we do have to look up, because it's a charter rule. We had to look and see, well, did he follow it? So when we say somebody's less of, he's not less of. If Mr. Hardin wants to say he's a Republican, he's a Republican. They only use that one seat, though, on someone who's historic. It'd be like if you said, Mr. Griffin, that you've always been a Democrat. That's great. So if you voted this time for a Republican so that, right, I'd still probably think you were a Democrat. So Taylor's point was, we wanted somebody as rock solid as you, D, as an R. And that didn't happen. So it's just, there's no mix. It's fine. And like Mr. Heidick pointed out, it comes back to council, but there really isn't a genuine mix here. So if we can agree two things at one time, no mix. All right, we'll let come through council. Okay. But like, let's make sure we're just being honest that that's what's happening. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
And to be fair, it was a genuine question when I had questioned his political affiliation, because it is campaign season. We have all had to circulate petitions, and you know that if I had gone up to Mr. Hardin and asked him for a signature as I was running as Republican, his signature would not be valid in the Board of Elections' eyes, because he voted D prior to the one-time voting R this past election. That was the only reason I questioned it. You vote for the person, not the party. I get that. I have done that myself.
Yes.
That's the only reason I questioned it. So
I just feel like it's been the thing we all keep going
it
back.
really, it really has.
And that's, we have to. It's part of the charter. We had to know their political
is.
background.
It is.
Otherwise, we would have never looked into this. And I think it went to the point that Mr. Heidick has made since we've all joined this council. It was, it's the same names. And so it's like, where do we pick up the fight for this? Some of them we don't get to fight for because we don't approve anything. So they get to be the same names everywhere. So when we get the same names, do we fight it or do we not? It's gotten hard to decide where we're choosing our battle lines sometimes, so.
Right, to put term limits on boards and commissions was gonna fail the council.
Oh my God, you're gonna harp on it some more?
Yeah.
Good Lord, man.
Well,
Next
and they
10
can,
months of it, you're gonna hear.
yeah.
How about that?
Rules is gonna be busy for the next few months.
Yeah, so,
Right.
Get your
and
folder
the thing
ready.
is, so when this originally was up for discussion, obviously we discussed it here in council. I know multiple people gave feedback, suggestions, you know, and the response was the list is the list. You know, so I just want it to be known, personally, I tried. I don't think it's smart to turn this down and have to schedule another special meeting that the mayor's not going to show up for because the list is the list. So,
I too would like to go on record with that. I've emailed him several times about this. I didn't give him any suggestions. I just had 2 that I couldn't approve. And that's all I said to him. There was no more to say about it. So,
yeah.
feedback was given, suggestions were made,
Yeah.
and we were hit with the list is the list.
I did give a suggestion. I know there was one that was originally presented that was then taken off. I asked that she be placed back on the list. That didn't happen. I didn't give a list like Mr. Harris, you know. I just gave suggestions, I guess you could say. But like I said, that obviously didn't do any good. So, I don't know. If there, Mr. Easterling.
Yeah, I
has
got one
something.
thing to say, and it's not really to do with what we're seem to be falling back on, but I hate to think that we would vote this list through and let them do what they do just to turn it down. I think that's a punk move. I think we show more respect to the people that end up on the list, that end up in the committee, to at least be able to do their job. Because it really just sounds like, well, let's just pass it and we'll knock it down in council, and I don't know, I don't like that going forward. I would rather, if we're gonna fight, let's fight it here, deal with the consequences, and give the Charter Review Commission their commission and let them do what they're supposed to do. If that makes
No.
any sense.
Can
No, I
we
get
just
what-
give
I-
them the trust to do their job? We don't know what they're gonna bring to us. I think that was the point, like, if we don't like it, we can say no to it, not we're just gonna say no anyway.
Well, I
I think we're trying to
Of
micromanage
course.
this, guys. We're micromanaging. Let these guys do what they're gonna do and bring it to us. I think we're talking in circles just to hear
absolutely.
ourselves talk right now. I
Absolutely.
think we need to vote.
I hear what you're saying.
just think we owe
And the thing
respect,
is,
that's
anybody who applies to volunteer, right, because this is not a paid position, to serve the community, I have so much respect for. They're, no matter who they are. So, it's not about that. You know, like I said, we've gone back and forth about this. Obviously, the list is the list. So if there's nothing else, this is already on the agenda, so I don't know if we need to change anything because there was one change.
You don't,
You
no.
don't.
Okay.
It's a group, individual.
You
Okay.
have to motion it out of the committee since it's a new list.
Yeah, but
Yeah, sorry.
this was just a clarification.
Sure.
Clarification question for Mrs. Miller. If a vote is not determined, the deadline's not met, can discussion still happen afterwards, or is that, once that line's crossed, there's just,
I'm just going to be very honest. I'm just a hopeful person by nature. So I was just hopeful that, you know, discussions could be had and so on and so forth. And that obviously doesn't sound like that happened. So I will absolutely do research on that. part of me, I have some initial thoughts on what I think happens, but I want to make sure I do that
Okay.
research first. But, people should vote the way they feel.
Correct.
As they do on every Monday night.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I guess I'll take a motion to call for this.
I'll make a motion to send to the floor the new list, not the one that's on the agenda.
In a second.
I'll second it.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
In a second?
I'll second.
Do you have the time?
6:47.
All right, we're adjourned at 6:47.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our special Finance and Personnel Committee. We'll just roll right into, if there's no objections, right into the regular legislative, or special legislative meeting for this evening. None? All right, today's Wednesday, February 26, 2025. This is a special legislative meeting of Barberton City Council. We are here in Barberton City, or the council chambers. It is 6:06, and I call this meeting to order. Well, sorry, that is not the correct time. I call this meeting to order at 6:48 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
President Greer,
Present.
Mr. Heidick,
Here.
Mrs. Thompson,
Here.
Mrs. Hager,
Here.
Mr. Easterling.
Here.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mrs. Beck.
Here.
Ms. Gerhart.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here. Thank you. Our agenda, before we move into our appointments, was there something the mayor wanted to read off into the minutes?
Mr. Greer, I know this isn't on the agenda, but we sometimes do this on a night that we vote. Would you mind if I said a prayer real quick?
If you would like to.
Thank you. Dear my Father, I just thank you for just the ability for our group to come together and talk and argue and discuss and have different opinions and mindsets. And we all have a heart that loves and cares for this city, and we're trying to do the best that we can. I thank you for all the names that have been put before us and their hearts to also serve the city. I pray just over this vote right now, over this election for the committee, give us wisdom, and I also pray that you would heal the divide that this is causing right now for hearts and friendships and relationships. In your name we pray, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart.
You're welcome.
All right. The mayor has something he'd like to be read into the minutes.
Dear City Council, I apologize, but I am unable to attend this evening due to a scheduling conflict surrounding my family. I have once again reviewed the applications for Charter Review Commission. Since Monday's council meeting, Councilperson Griffin came into my office on Tuesday, February 25th. I called Councilperson Harris and we spoke today. Councilperson Easterling emailed me, as did Councilperson Hager. Mr. Rob Persley has withdrawn his application since he has committed to other projects. The applicants who have applied have all played a part in the city in some capacity, past or present, other than Dallas Moore, Holly Johnston, Perry, and John White. While I strive for new volunteers to join boards, commissions, and other opportunities, it is important that the community is represented. Having previously served the city of Barberton as an employee, elected official, volunteer, or otherwise, does provide tangible experience and perspective as to the needs of the community, government, nonprofit, nonprofits, schools, residents, businesses, and others. I feel that this perspective is important in making real change since they have served the community, live in the community, and want to be a member of the Charter Review Commission. New ideas to the commission come from the appointees, City Council, and the public. Recommendations are then passed to City Council, who can approve or disapprove those recommendations, and/or Council can come up with their own recommendations to approve. These proposed charter changes are then voted on by the voters in town. This is why I believe my list of applicants should be confirmed by Council. I was asked to make changes, which I did. That change did not satisfy some council members. I've been asked again to change the majority of the applicants submitted, but I have not been given good reasons for making such changes. Comments made during this process are based on a personal disapproval of the applicants, not that the applicant did not meet the requirements set in the charter. Making a decision for a volunteer position based on not agreeing with what an applicant has said in the past does not provide a reasonable defense for removing them from the approved applicants. As elected officials, we come across many different types of people, and we cannot allow our feelings for someone to dictate our decisions. Based on representing the community in the best way possible, I put together a list for council that met all the qualifications and criteria as outlined in the charter. The current list of applicants bring a fresh change to the commission, though among other things, there are differences in experience, perspectives, and background. This includes 2 nonpartisan residents who are newer to the city and, as far as I know, newer to this type of government board. They are professional and will bring a different perspective to the commission. It includes an individual who is a retired corporate attorney and who has served this community well and can focus on the facts when sitting on boards. There are 2 former council members who were voted into council seats multiple times by the voters in their wards and decided not to run for re-election in 2023. So I believe they represent the residents and have the support from the voters. There is a retired city employee who has worked in several departments during his time with the city and has been successful at all levels. There is a value in his experience and perspective. Lastly, a change I made to include a resident who has lived in the community his entire life and is newer to this type of board. These applicants, I feel, represent the community and will be able to discuss changes to the charter in an insightful, engaging, and a way that betters the community.
That's from the mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so on the agenda today, we're not doing our first reading and second readings, but we do have appointments, and these so being that it was finance and personnel, is there a motion to appoint the group to the commission? Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to motion that we appoint Mr. Thomas Harden, Mrs. Nina Angela, Mrs. Carol Fry, Mr. Dallas Moore, Ms. Holly Johnson Perry, Mr. John White, and Mr. Larry Charlie Reese to the Charter Review Commission.
Thank you. And Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to appoint.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to appoint Mr. Tom Harden, Mrs. Angeloff, Mrs. Fry, Mr. Moore, Mrs. Johnston Perry, Mr. Reese, and Mr. White to the Charter Review Commission. Are there any remarks? Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. With this group here, I just want to remind everybody, go back to what Councilor Griffin said. The rules are black and white here. All these people, some of them I don't agree with, some of them I agree with. The charter dictates what qualifies. They all qualify. I don't like this procedure. I don't like how it's set up, but it is the rules. I know I'm going to suggest a charter amendment to reform that. I suggest that we vote for these people, and I suggest that anybody like me that has a problem with how this has gone down and how this is said submits their own as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Is
so
there-
sorry.
Are there any other remarks? We're not having a debate, just
No, no,
statements.
no, it's not. It's not, it's gonna be real quick. None of all of us have been whining about getting new people in here. Mrs. Miller.
No questions either. It's
She,
a
no,
statement.
I just want to
Okay.
say, she's like, she put a whole thing together over this weekend to get new faces in here, and it was glorious and beautiful, and thank you. So I think we should all maybe just take out a page of that and be the change we want to see in the city. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Is there anything else from the body? Seeing none, I'm going to have the clerk call the roll on the appointments.
Are we doing the name by name or as a?
No, this is for the group.
So just one vote. Okay. Mr. Heidick,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hager,
Yes.
Mr. Easterling,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Beck,
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart,
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
All right, motion for appointment passes. With nothing else on the agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Heidick? Sorry, Mrs. Miller?
Sorry, I know that, I don't want you to stay here 1 minute longer than you have to, so I'll be very quick. As you may or may not have known, I've been very ill, and I'm just now feeling better, and I could not go to the involvement fair that I helped with so many other people work on. I can't tell you the number of excited phone calls I got after that and texts. People were so excited. We believe we had at least 73 new faces that most of us have not met before, and then we had about 30 members of boards and commissions and organizations. And we have their emails. There were a lot of, I'm 58, so young, like my children's age, young folks show up, and I just couldn't be more excited. And we have a wrap-up meeting next week, and we're going to start planning our next thing. So thank you guys for all your support on this. Many of you were able to be there. I understand that not everybody can, but thank you for your support. It meant everything. People are just really excited. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
worth the minute, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't say that.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
I just want to say,
I'm sorry.
I acknowledge this at council.
I saw that, yeah.
But I don't think thank you is enough, because I feel like you hear what's being said, and you found a way to take action on that. And we genuinely appreciate that, and we want to support that and back that, and just thank you.
Let me be very clear, it wasn't just.
And I know it wasn't,
Yeah,
but
Melanie Amato
you
was
also
a huge
helped,
driving force.
you helped
in this.
spearhead it.
Yeah.
And you
So-
recognize the lack of new leadership and new, not young, just fresh.
Sure, of
People
course.
coming to the table, because
I was just excited because when you look at like service organizations across time, they're really having a difficult time recruiting younger people. I'm just going to say that word. And to have some of them show up on a Sunday at 2 is just made me ridiculously happy. And I
Yeah.
actually knew a couple of the kids at Young Men, and one of them specifically had an idea that Lisa Davenport and I and Melanie are going to talk about how to implement that. Specifically, what he said we've heard elsewhere, but weren't quite sure how to. I don't want to ruin it because I'll let Melanie do that.
Yeah.
But super excited
Good.
about the possibilities.
that's exciting. That's encouraging to hear.
Yes. And I love your shirt.
Well, thank you. Representing the Kelsey brothers.
Yes.
We allowed to make a comment?
I'm going to.
It's a special.
Not in regards, I mean, I appreciate her. And I thank her, even though she was sick.
Yeah.
But I just want,
Yeah, you can make
can I
that.
comment on what we just did here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was hard for me to make this decision. I appreciate the fact that, the mayor was able to put some new people on this. Do I agree with all of them? No. But I do appreciate the people that have never been involved in anything actually saying, hey, I'll devote some of my own time, unpaid, to step up. I mean, we have to start somewhere, and we have to make a change in the city. We have to improve the city compared to what we've seen, at least my personal opinion, over the last 32 years. And I appreciate everybody being able to sit here and have a pretty civil conversation, argument, whatever you want to call it. I appreciate everybody's opinion. I like the fact that I was able to send out an email and I did get some response from people. And I understood where everybody came from on it, and I appreciate that. Appreciate each and every one here. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
You're welcome.
Ms. Gerhart.
I just back up some of what Monty said. I just think we have a really good group, and I appreciate that we can talk and ask each other questions and say, what the heck did that mean? Or, get clarification and work together. So I like serving with all of you. I'm done. With that, I pass.
Thank you. Is there any other remarks from the body?
I just love y'all.
All right. You guys do work really well together. We all do. It might be hard to see, but it's a good thing. We have a good thing going. So with nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, Mrs. Thompson.
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned at 7:02 p.m.
Believe it or not, I look for you.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Tell you what, that's not bad. 1 hour.